can't do this again. And so I was like, I think I'm done. But the business and I still had some fuel in the tank. But Saturday for Brock Lesnar, that's it. That's it for me in the squared circle and for everything else too. So I can't do this again.
It seems the heel's advocate has to make this video. My brothers and sisters, today's video is one that comes deep from the bottom of my heart, and it saddens me, and we all have to bow our heads in sorrow and acknowledge the contributions, the blood, sweat, tears the Beast Incarnate Brock Lesnar has put into the career of professional wrestling, the art form of combat sports. He is today coming out announcing that he is forever done with the WWE, with basically any televised athletic endeavor, and that has been the career of the Beast Brock Lesnar. Now, I have to talk about what I loved about Brock's career, and then talk about the position that he kind of retired in. You know, I don't really think we liked what really happened and the way that he kind of retired, or, you know, the way that the situation of his final year in the WWE was handled, because the fact is, it was basically already established that he would be coming back for 1 year. Now, we didn't know about this until recently. I will pull up the clip right now. So let's go ahead and hear from him.
I go there. I'm the old guy now. You know, shit. I had to go. I went back to work so I could feed my kids. You guys should see my grocery bill. I had left the company years ago, and I'm grateful that I'm back for a short time here. So I'm really grateful for all the opportunities that I've had.
So that was what Brock Lesnar said going into, I believe, WrestleMania. I believe it was the time during WrestleMania, March 25th. Yeah, so that was just shortly before his match against Oba Femi. And as we know, Brock Lesnar came back after being gone from the WWE as soon as Vince McMahon got that lawsuit from Janelle Grant in, what was it, late 2023, early 2024, something like that. I think he got pulled from the Royal Rumble as well. So basically from 2023 2024 up until last year, 2025 August, SummerSlam 25, that was the time he came back. And since then, he had only one match, singles match that year against John Cena, and then he was in the War Games match, and then he obviously had the Royal Rumble, but then a match against Oba Femi. So that was the way the final year of Brock Lesnar was handled. Now, I don't think Brock Lesnar gives a damn about storylines and everything like that, but I don't mind the fact that he came back, the way he came back, attacking John Cena. I don't mind it at all, right? The thing with Brock Lesnar is, as soon as he lost to Roman Reigns in that last man standing match, he has never been basically in a storyline that made any sense. You know, he came back to wrestle against Brock Lesnar, and then afterwards he was like in a situation where he would show up on the Raw after Mania 40 or 39, I should say, and he just F5s Cody Rhodes, you know? Like, and then they literally have 3 matches, and in the build-up in those matches, we don't get a single reasoning as to why he did it, you know? And then they have 3 matches. Obviously, Cody Rhodes goes over. I think he wins 2 out of the 3 or 1 out of the 3, but then we had the same thing happen against John Cena. He comes back, he just F5s Cena, and then a month and a half later, right, he F5s him in August at SummerSlam, and then a PLE goes by, Cena wrestles Logan Paul, and then, you know, WrestlePalooza around the corner, and boom, now we're over there trying to make that thing happen. And he comes out and he's cutting a promo with R-Truth. And it's just, you know, like, it didn't make any sense to me. I didn't like it at all. But the fact is, Brock Lesnar doesn't need any storylines. Brock Lesnar is legit. Brock Lesnar is real. And that is the appeal of Brock Lesnar. You don't really care what he does because he is the guy that makes it interesting. So the biggest issue I had with him facing Oba Femi is that I really, really wished they at least built up something interesting, right? I wish they built up something along the lines of, all right, this is the next big thing. Brock used to be the next big thing. They didn't really play with it that much, you know? The moment the match happened against Oba Femi at WrestleMania 42 and 41, 42, right? And he lost and he got squashed and he, you know, obviously had a very emotional farewell. I thought to myself, this is not the way that we got to do things. Because I already knew one thing. This was not going to be Brock's last match. I just knew it. And what happens next, right? Oba Femi, he then loses to Brock Lesnar at Backlash. And then we build up this weird storyline where somehow they're like, you know, Brock Lesnar cares enough to come back and have a third match. From the beginning, I said, no, we're going to not have Oba Femi win at WrestleMania because this is going to immediately jump the gun too quickly. You know, the WWE has this problem, has this tendency of always pulling, you know what I'm saying? Making the move far too late. They always do it far, far too late. You know, when something is hot, they never capitalize. They rinse it out as long as they can before they make the move because they want to get the most money out of it. And then when like things are going down, all right, now we gotta, you know what I'm saying, make the move happen. It's the same thing with Cody Rhodes and like finishing a story. And that obviously is a totally different story. But this one with Oba Femi completely ruined it because what do you mean Oba Femi just literally goes out there and squashes Brock Lesnar in like, what, a minute and a half, 2 minutes? And then where does Oba Femi go from there? Did he challenge Brock Lesnar? No. I'm sorry. Did he challenge Roman Reigns? No. Cody Rhodes? No. Did he challenge CM Punk? No, he didn't do anything, right? Literally the following Monday Night Raw after Mania, he comes out and says, the WWE World Heavyweight Championship is now being contested by other people. They are too busy. And so I declare the Oba Femi Open Challenge. Like what? Like you couldn't book beyond this? And the fact is, Brock Lesnar didn't actually it wasn't planned for him to retire at WrestleMania 42. Right? That was not the plan. That was shoot. So they actually planned this. They planned Oba to go over, and they planned for them to have two more matches after that. You know, had it been actually, all right, Brock, we all agree at WrestleMania 42 you're gonna retire. Boom, good job. All right, cool. I have no problems with it, right? I could not feel this way that I'm feeling about it right now. But the way they handled it is too poorly, you know? Oba goes on a freaking random open challenge. He doesn't confront Roman, doesn't confront Cody. To make matters worse, he wins the King of the Ring, and he doesn't pick a freaking challenge. And now we have LA Knight confronting Roman Reigns. Where is Oba Femi? Why did he beat Brock Lesnar? Why did Brock put him over at Mania if this is not going to be something that we're going to capitalize on, right? So a lot of mistakes happened with the way they handled the last feud of Brock Lesnar, right? Because to me, it genuinely did not feel like a passing of the torch in this current moment of time. Had it been right after WrestleMania and now we had maybe already a match against Oba and Roman happening at SummerSlam, I could get behind that, you know? Now it really feels like in vain. Now it feels like we're going to have to wait, and hope something happens later down the year between Oba and Roman Reigns. I don't like it. Now, that's my little rant about that. I want to talk about Brock Lesnar now and, the impact he's had on me being a fan of professional wrestling and combat sports in general, right? I've been a lifelong fan of Brock Lesnar. There's nothing that is more badass than Brock Lesnar. There's nobody that comes close. There's nobody that even touches the aura of Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is quite literally the final boss of the WWE. There is nobody that scales above him. Brock Lesnar at 100%, in kayfabe, out of kayfabe, is never supposed to lose. Never. You know, the only guy that maybe can be above him is Goldberg, but Goldberg is like wrestling's One Punch Man. You know, it's not even fair to say Goldberg is better than him. It's that's the gimmick, right? Nobody can beat Goldberg, right? So that's the whole thing. Obviously, Goldberg is also my favorite wrestler, and I know recently after he came back, after 2016, he had a bunch of losses here and there against Drew McIntyre, Roman, yada yada yada. Nobody cares, right? But I wanted to go and basically acknowledge just how amazing Brock was, right? from being, how old was he? 23 years old, 24 years old. He came out of OVW. A year later, he's basically wrestling The Rock at SummerSlam 2002 or 2003. He beats The Rock, right? The Rock gives him the rub, and The Rock takes his little send off to Hollywood, and he goes and does his own thing, right? And that was a proper establishment of the next guard. And when Brock Lesnar says there wouldn't be no John Cena had Brock Lesnar stayed, and I truly believe that, right? There would be no place for a John Cena if a Brock Lesnar is there, you know? So the fact that John Cena still managed to, you know, save his career, turn things around, become the doctor of thugonomics, and you know, there's a lot that we can learn from John Cena as well, right? But Brock Lesnar is that guy. He is the pay-per-view attraction in an era where there are no more pay-per-views, you know? So the fact that he then went to MMA at a time where MMA is not as big as it was, right? And I vividly remember being first introduced to mixed martial arts. A friend of my brother, he told me that basically, hey man, look, heel, look at what Brock Lesnar is doing nowadays. And he literally shows me a picture of him like in Japan fighting this, I think, judo medalist. He takes him down, bro. Literal, just like 50-second squash fight, bro. Takes him down, beats him up, and boom, there he is, standing over him. I was like, this guy was literally just wrestling like The Undertaker in Hell in a Cell. Like, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, it was just like a new world opened up to me. And then he made his debut against Frank Mir. And then he had his run in the UFC. That introduced me to the UFC in like, what was it, 2008, 2009. So I've been following the UFC for a very, very long time before it was mainstream at all, you know? Back when Chuck Liddell was still fighting, stuff like that, you know, Rich Franklin, Matt Hughes, you know, BJ Penn, you know. So like at that time, I got to thank Brock Lesnar for introducing me. You know, if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would be into the UFC at all, you know? Him being on the cover of UFC Undisputed 2010, stuff like that is just so badass. And I remember it was maybe WWE 2K12, and he was still under the contract with the UFC, and somehow they made him a DLC character in that year. You know, like the year that he came back to the WWE and he confronted John Cena. He was in the game before that even happened. You know, I was like, wow, like what's going on, right? And then he comes back. I believe it was Raw 2000 or the Raw after WrestleMania 27. He comes out, Brock Lesnar, bro, confronts John Cena, and the match they had at Extreme Rules, I couldn't wrap my head around that. You know, the way he wrestled John Cena, I was like I remember thinking, this guy's freaking cheating. You know, Brock Lesnar is cheating. He's not doing WWE. He's doing UFC. This is cheating. You can't do UFC and WWE, right? That's what I was thinking, you know? Because he was doing like the shoot style fighting, you know, like the double legs, takedowns, ground up. I was like, who can beat this guy, bro? This guy's cheating. You know what I mean? Like, that was like the only like thing I remember thinking, you know? So it was awesome. Then he beats down like Cena, breaks his freaking arm with the Kimura, and like he's bloodied up. I'm like, bro, what is this? And then luckily Cena is able to turn it around with the chain wrapped around his fist. F5 onto the steel steps, and then Brock Lesnar got pinned. But I was like, dude, Brock lost, but like he did not feel like a loser at all. You know what I mean? Like, he might have gotten pinned, but he didn't lose. You know what I'm saying? So from then, Brock Lesnar's like second tenure in the WWE happened, and obviously he went to wrestle Triple H, CM Punk, John Cena, The Undertaker. He beat he literally destroyed the streak. And I feel so bad about not watching that WrestleMania live. I don't know why I didn't watch it live. I don't know what happened, but you know, I know for a fact when Daniel Bryan was doing the whole Yes Movement thing, and like Roman Reigns was starting to get involved a little bit, I was like, I'm not interested in this at all, and I completely skipped on that year, I think. But I did realize, like, dude, he beat Undertaker, so I went back to watch it, and the streak getting ended, I just couldn't believe it, you know, and there is no better way for it to end than to have it end at the hands of Brock Lesnar. A lot of people will say, no, it should have been somebody else, or somebody else should have gotten the rub. But no, you completely missed a point, right? You know, it's almost like reality became kayfabe, and Undertaker actually was concussed. That helped create this storyline for breaking the streak. You know, obviously it was planned for that night to be the end of the streak, but the fact that the Undertaker was older, frailer, thinner, skinnier, you know what I'm saying, and he got concussed and he got injured, and Brock Lesnar is this freaking animal beast. So it all came to be at a right time, you know. And Undertaker had just defeated, like, Shawn Michaels and Triple H in Hell in a Cell, so it felt like the chapter on the streak had already ended. And Brock Lesnar was simply the final nail in the coffin to remind us that nothing lasts forever. So that was really the best way it could have went. You know, people talk about, oh yeah, it should have been Bray Wyatt. Are you kidding me? You know, like, respect to Bray Wyatt, you know what I'm saying? RIP, but no, no. Nobody else could have done it other than Brock. Nobody else could have been as believable as Brock. And that's the way I feel about it, you know? So following that, he completely squashes John Cena. I watched that live. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And, then Goldberg comes back, my favorite wrestler of all time, and he allows Goldberg to, like, squash him. Like, wow, man. Like, Brock Lesnar is single-handedly the most badass wrestler of all time. Single-handedly. There's nothing, nobody, like, everybody is a fraudster compared to that guy. Everybody, even like the record, like, look at the records this guy held. He was 33-0 in his senior year of high school, right? So every single week they wrestled. They had a tournament or whatever the hell they had, right? In wrestling. Every single week. So imagine, right? You have your entire senior year, and every single week you wrestle, and every single week you win. It's insane. Two-time Big Ten champion. I don't know what that is. NJ, so like junior college athlete, All-American. NCAA All-American, NC National Champion, NC Division I National Champion, UFC Heavyweight Champion, Money in the Bank winner. That's such a funny thing to put in there, King of the Ring, two-time Royal Rumble winner, three-time Universal Champion, seven-time WWE Champion. It's also to be noted that Brock Lesnar has never won anything other than World Championship. He's not won a mid-card title. He's not won a tag title. He hasn't won anything that isn't the top of the chain, right? So he is that guy, bro. Brock is that guy, and I just have nothing but respect for the guy. And obviously, his feuds with Roman Reigns, to me, those already felt like feuds with a predestined outcome. It was just basically a feud to put over Roman Reigns. I was surprised that he beat Roman at what was it, like WrestleMania 34, 33, where he busted up Roman Reigns and he beat him clean. I was like, what the hell? Like, Roman lost clean? So like, for me, that was like a bigger shock than like actually Brock beating him. But so, obviously then Brock, Roman got him back. Last man standing. He unified the titles. It's just something that you have to do. You cannot be the big guy in the WWE, the number one guy in the WWE, if you haven't beaten Brock Lesnar. That's why Cody Rhodes had to beat him after he lost at WrestleMania 39 before he could challenge Roman Reigns. Because the idea is, what is Cody going to do when he wins the title and Brock Lesnar shows up, right? So, you kind of have to take that question out of the equation before he gets the titles, So, that is what they did with Cody. It was a good decision, but I don't know, man. Like, I can't believe that Brock is literally done now. It's sad that they couldn't honor him retiring at WrestleMania. I get that they basically had a contract that said, all right, from August 2025 till August 2026, Brock Lesnar, you're going to have X amount of matches, and we'll have you retire at Minnesota. And I wish Brock beat Oba Femi, barely at WrestleMania 42, right? Like, the match should have started off and, like, Brock is doing his own thing. He's trying to get his stuff in, but Oba's, like, no selling, and Oba's getting the better of him. And, maybe there's, like, a referee spot, low blow, F5 spam, and then Brock Lesnar narrowly escapes and gets the victory that way. And then Oba Femi is, like, obsessed with it, right? So he's trying to chase down Paul Heyman. He's attacking Paul Heyman backstage, and he's trying to get, like, Brock Lesnar to come out of his shell. He finally does. Oba Femi attacks him. I don't know, does something, embarrasses him, attacks him backstage, something. Then they have a rematch at, Night of Champions or Backlash. Oba Femi goes over, and then Brock Lesnar is like completely going insane, and he wants to like prove that he isn't like done yet. He isn't old yet. He isn't done, like past his prime yet, and he can't beat this young guy, and he will not acknowledge this young guy as the next big thing. So that could have been a way better way to establish SummerSlam 2026. And if I'm totally being honest here, that could have been the real main event of night 2, to be honest. They completely fumbled the bag like they do with everything these days in the WWE. The storylines don't make sense at all. Like, for example, Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns. Yeah, objectively speaking, in an isolated environment, if I'm going to look back at that whole thing, a year or two from now and look at just the match, I'll be like, yeah, that's a fun way to do it. But in the moment right now, leading up to it, like, it didn't make any sense, right? Seth Rollins didn't win anything. He didn't look strong at all recently. He doesn't really have any bragging rights. Goes out there and just loses. Same thing with LA Knight. He hasn't won anything recently either. And it's like the same logic that I can apply to those matches with Roman Reigns, I can apply to Oba Femi and Brock Lesnar. I wish they really planned it a little bit different, but I don't know. Obviously, had Brock Lesnar been booked to beat Oba Femi, he's not going to sit there and retire. So I think it was basically a missed opportunity for a great send off and a great feud to culminate at Hell in a Cell SummerSlam. The match could have been better, if there was blood and if it was longer and if there were more freaking crazy spots, breaking the cage, it didn't feel like a Hell in a Cell match to me, but like I said, we're just nitpicking here, it ended, right? The career ended, Brock is done, and we all have to just bow our heads, acknowledge the greatness of Brock Lesnar, and what an amazing guy, what an amazing athlete, just a generational talent, just a generational talent. He's, you only have a few of those people, right? Like, you only have a Kurt Angle once, a Brock Lesnar once, it's so rare to have people like that, so it's just insane. I'm happy. And we were at a time where we had a Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar on the same roster, active in their primes. It's insane. I'm really happy we got to live through this era and witness everything. And I'm just so happy that we have an entire amazing career that we can look back at and say, right, this is how you do it. And that should be something all the new wrestlers of today should be looking at and trying to emulate and copy, and be as serious, be as good, be as dangerous, be as intimidating, and be as real as Brock Lesnar, because he was the next big thing. And now we all acknowledge that he was indeed the big thing forever. My brothers and sisters, it seemed that the Heels Advocate had to make this video. With pain in my heart, I must bid you guys adieu. Thank you, Brock Lesnar, and I'm out.